Good afternoon. It's really a privilege to have Jo Muirhead here today because she has been through so much. And the reason I wanted her here today is because she's been so raw and honest about her being diagnosed with breast cancer through a pandemic. And she's not only a mum, but she's a consultant rehabilitation counsellor. I had to remember that. And she's guided thousands of people through their own rehab. But then she was diagnosed herself and had to sort of reassess medical treatment and, go on her own journey through rehab. And just because the treatment is finished doesn't mean your rehab's finished. And she has a story about her rehab puppy, which we see every day. So welcome, Jo.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And do you know why? I actually asked you to be here because you have such amazing boundaries as well. I really love your boundaries where you say yes when you're well, and no, and then when you're unwell and you take care of yourself. And that's what I'd love everyone to do, to know that no is okay as well.
That took a cancer diagnosis. just so don't be Jo. It's my first piece of advice. Learn it before a cancer diagnosis.
Exactly. Yeah. But I love that about you so much. So I think we've known each other for about 5 years now because Kalua's.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Look at that. We measure things in dog birthdays now. No, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah. So, Jo, what would you like to tell us? I'd like you to guide us through this.
Okay. So I appreciate what you say about boundaries. I didn't tell people in the beginning. So I was diagnosed on the 14th of February 2020. Yes, It was Valentine's Day. And I take that diagnosis day as the day mammograms and ultrasounds came back going, you've got suspicious lumps. And I had them, both breasts were affected, and I'm just an overachiever like that. So we were just learning about this place called Wuhan. We were just learning about this thing called a pandemic. So I was going to all of these radiology appointments on my own. People were suited up. You were left in, it was just incredibly isolating. I remember going to the first mammogram when I'd never had a mammogram before. So I wasn't old enough.
No, of course not.
So anywho, that was scary because I'd only ever heard negative things about mammograms, and you end up wearing a gown.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Opens at the back, and because of this pandemic and risk management, everyone was going. They would sit you in hallways by yourself. You couldn't sit in the waiting room. So I'm on a chair trying to pull this gown around me, waiting for this machine, which I've only ever heard bad things about, in a freezing cold room because the rooms are so small and the machines are so big and they're so hot. Anyway, so all of that happened on the 14th of February. And we were in pandemic time. But because I didn't tell people for a couple of months because we were going through this pandemic, and prior to the pandemic, we'd had these massive floods. And prior to these massive floods, we'd had horrendous bushfires. And prior to these horrendous bushfires, my husband had been diagnosed with cancer. So his cancer treatment hadn't actually been finished when my treatment started. And all of a sudden, I was thrust into this world of cancerness and trying to make sense of it. So I kept it to myself, and I kept pretty quiet about it until I felt like things were going to start changing for me, and I had to start talking about it. So one of there's never been a history of it in my family. We don't carry that fancy gene. So it was quite a shock and quite a surprise. But I had worked with many people, men and women actually, throughout my career, who were cancer survivors and breast cancer survivors. So I knew that it wasn't going to be a death sentence necessarily, although the urgency which things are done doesn't alleviate some of that stress.
Yeah.
So here I am going, it's all right. I know what to do. I've seen how people do this before. Just function, because I'm very good at functioning. And then, yes, then you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
So one of the most difficult parts of the experience for me, apart from the body image stuff that comes up forever, like I'm still dealing with that now, is just the way I have very high expectations of our health service here in Australia. We have an amazing health service, but the medical model isn't about patient care. And I come from a philosophy of very patient or client-centric care. So to me, I just expected that that's what would happen. But the medical model is all very much about, we've got to get these tumors out of you and then you'll be fine. And I'm like, but that's only part of the job done. So I've learned to become a very strong advocate for myself throughout this whole process, not just fighting for the right treatment or access to treatment, although that came up, but just like, please treat me like I'm a person, not a disease.
Yeah.
Please treat me like, look me in the eye. Don't lose my medical records. I find it hilarious that we all get so concerned about what information is available to people, and we've got incredibly strict privacy laws and health privacy laws in this country. But I gave everybody permission to read my health file because, but none of it went anywhere. So I ended up taking this paper lever arch file with me to all my appointments going, what do you need to know? Because medical information just didn't arrive. So it's just things like that that didn't make me feel very cared for in the beginning. And you get all of this information thrown at you at the beginning. So you go off to the cancer centre and you're sitting there going, am I going to end up looking like those people? And cancer centres have a unique smell.
Oh, yes.
Anyone see? You knew exactly what I meant there. So again, this is all, we're all masked up, we're all suited up. Nobody knows how this pandemic thing, am I going to die today? And then I'm getting bloods drawn. It was weekly occurrence because they're checking for different levels. And then there's surgery, and then hospitals closing and not hospitals closing. And you go and have a meeting with a clinical nurse consultant. And seriously, it's just like, I've got 45 minutes with you. I'm going to say all the words really, really fast. This is everything you need to know about your entire cancer journey, and this 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 and this, and sign here. See ya, bye. And I'm just like, hi, I'm Jo.
Yeah.
So I threw out most of the documentation I was given then, because it was all just, it was like, I don't want to know about reconstruction when I don't even know what it is I've got yet. They give you information about chemotherapy and radiation therapy, but you don't even know if you need that yet. They start talking to you about hormone therapy, which is going to, you're going to be on that for 10 years now, not 5 years. And you don't even know if you need that. So they're just putting all this, I found it was fear-mongering for me, but they're trying to be effective and efficient and give you all this information. And it's just not the right information at the right time, which I found incredibly debilitating, because I knew enough to be dangerous.
Yes. And do you know what, Jo? That's actually why I left nursing, because it was so, this. And it got, so not about the client anymore. And I couldn't be a client advocate because I had to give this information because that's the time to do it. So, and it's really hard being a nurse. And I'm sure now, it's really hard being, or harder actually, because I left 21 years ago. But it's difficult to, treat people with care even.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that people don't often understand is that not all breast cancer is the same. Yes. So the types of cancers that you get diagnosed with are not necessarily the same. And then the types of treatment protocols for the different types of cancers aren't the same. It's becoming more and more personalized. Now, I needed 3 surgeries. I had chemotherapy, but I didn't need radiation, and I'm not using hormones. And I've got another friend who just had lumpectomies, and that's all she needed. And then I've got other people in my world who, like me, have had, amputations and reconstructions that then needed chemo and radiation and hormones. So we're all unique. And the chemotherapy piece, people just expect that chemo is the same chemo for anything. It's not. And that was new learning for me. And that was new. And so when you're in the chemo center or the chemo room, because out here where we are, it's a big room and there's all sorts of chairs, the way the nurses are dressed, because these are poisons they're putting in your body, when they come to you, it's quite confronting. Because they come over and they say hi and they settle you down, and then they go and get geared up, and it's like, what the hell are you putting into me? And then you start to feel it and you go, oh, that's what you're putting into me. So I think that whole understanding that different types of breast cancers need different types of treatment, and then that will be age dependent, and that will also be on other medical conditions dependent, and as I found out, where you live in Sydney dependent, which I keep waiting for, the New South Wales health gods to strike me down with lightning when I say that. But unfortunately, as somebody who lives in the greater west of Sydney, I had to work really, really hard to get the treatment that I wanted, because not all health services are created equal.
No, that's right. And I think that's an important point, though, Jo, because people don't realise what's out there, and different areas that you live in, like rural New South Wales or Australia, any rural area doesn't get what we get. And, it's amazing the difference of where you live, whether it's in a city or, out of.
Yeah, and that's got nothing to do with private versus public.
Oh,
I'm not even going to enter into that debate, but geographically, what equipment, what expertise, who's available, what surgical expertise do they have, what chemical expertise do they have? We've just got these assumptions that, you'll get the best treatment wherever you go. And we get really good treatment compared to other parts of the world for free.
Yes.
But it's not all equal.
That's right. Well, and I think the point here is that you need to know what you need as well to ask for it.
Here comes in Jo being a little bit dangerous.
Okay.
So when you need major surgery to your chest wall, so let's just call it what it is, it affects your shoulders, because we all remember that rhyme when we were kids, the head bone's connected to the neck bone, right? Well, you can't not have your shoulders impeded when you're going to take off a whole heap, because it will get affected, right? So if you imagine that you've got these giant stab wounds, I ended up with 5 stab wounds. This is how I reconcile it from the first surgery. So on both sides of my chest. So my shoulders were affected. So I'm like, why didn't anyone talk to me about discharge, about going home, and some of the things that were going to be difficult?
Wow.
So imagine my surprise, because when you're under general anaesthetic, what happens? Your tummy doesn't work properly anymore. So you're given things to help it work better. Imagine your surprise when you're sitting on the bathroom, on your toilet. This is going to gross some people out, so go la 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 if you don't want to hear it. I was sitting on the toilet in excruciating pain, unable to clean myself because my shoulders don't work.
Yeah, wow.
So that's when I started going, I no longer trust you people to have my best care intentions. That was horrid. And the pain was so bad I actually fainted, and I was just like, I'm not putting myself through that again. I'm not putting my husband through that again.
Yeah.
So I had known, I've got some great occupational therapists in my world, given the work that I do, and I knew that shoulder rehab formed a really big part of what is reconstructive surgery. But at that stage, I hadn't had reconstructive surgery. At that stage, we didn't know if I was going to need it. I ended up needing it. But so I was just like, should I ask for this? How do I ask for this? Like, how do I tell this story? But then when you go to the nurse who's case managing you, they're like, oh yeah, somebody should have thought about that.
Oh no. Yeah.
It's like, don't you think this should be a standard of care?
Yeah.
Like, and then I'm sitting in the hospital or the cancer room looking at the ages of the ladies, because it tends the older you get, the increased chances going, oh man, I hope somebody's having this conversation with some of these ladies.
Yeah.
You know, because this is, you feel invaded, like I've crossed my arms already, you feel invaded enough. It's very invasive to parts of your anatomy that, you know, you don't usually want people manhandling, but you end up being very manhandled. And so that part of the treatment is really hard to get your head around. And this is when, in hindsight, I wish I'd reached out for more formal counselling, mental health support, because I was working so hard to protect myself from feeling invaded, because that brings up all sorts of childhood stuff. And then I was dealing with all sorts of, oh my God, if I don't do this, so there's a power dynamic here. And then there's the constant thought in the back of your head, am I going to die? And, you know, they like to tell you all the ways you could die.
Yep.
You could die if you do nothing. You could die if you do something. You could die if you do chemo. Do we need chemo? Maybe we need chemo. The statistics say, now, no one on their right mind wants to hear about statistics. So it's like, no, I want to know about cure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, but the statistics say, what?
Yeah.
How am I going to die? I can't actually tell you. Am I going to die from this disease the way it is right now, is what you're trying to say. And it's, as you and I both know, with the way our brains, when you've got nothing but your fight or your flight on in the back part of your brain, giving me a whole heap of information, asking me to make decisions, ain't going to happen.
No. No. And even with someone who's stressed out, like you can't be given that whole passel of stuff that you're meant to, you know, statistics, I think, mean nothing. And I don't like statistics at all, because we're all individuals. And, you know, if you're the statistics, you're the statistic, it means something to you, but if you're not, it doesn't. So
yeah. So I then had to work, and this is something I'm quite proud of. It was like, all right, who do I want to be during this, and who do I want to be coming out of this? So I never had the thought that I was going to die from this. There were periods of time when I wanted to, different thing. But as I didn't expect this to be a death sentence for myself. So I went, okay, I want to be, in 10 years' time, how old will I be? So I'll be nearly 60 in 10 years' time. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to be a grandma by then. What type of grandma do I want to be? So I was really clear that I wanted to be fit and strong and well enough to be able to run around with grandkids, play in the water, go to the beach, go bushwalking. I want to be that type of grandma. Okay. If Anthony ever watches this, 10 years.
Putting it out there.
No, he's like, I've heard you, Mom. But so for me, that just gave me something to hold on to and to anchor to, and it helped me make decisions about my treatment the whole way along. Yeah. So something else about breast cancer, particularly the two different types of cancer that I had, because, you know, overachiever, is the risk of recurrence. This is the thing that they're always trying to manage. So breast cancer, when it comes back, it doesn't come back to your breasts, even because most of us have them removed, right? It comes back, the breast cancer will come back to other parts of your body. And where the pathways that it comes back to statistically are your bones, your ovaries, your brain, which we don't have cures for. So they really want to mop up any cells that have gone to other parts of your bodies that could potentially metastasize. So a lot of people think of this recurrence and go, but you haven't got any breast tissue left. You can't get a recurrence. No, that's not how it works. So helping, you know, just understand that I chose to treat my breast cancer really aggressively because of this, you know, 10-year plan that I had. Like, I don't want to have to go through this again. If I do, I know that I've done everything within my power to not make that happen, like to avoid that situation, so I can stop feeling guilty. I can, I don't have that second guessing going on in my head anymore. It's like I just don't expect it to turn up. And if it does, okay, we'll deal with it.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So then you've been through all of that, and then what's the story you tell about Smudge? How he came to be.
So there was a lot of toing and froing about whether or not chemotherapy was going to help me. So having to make that decision, and I won't go into that because that's a long conversation. But in the end, it worked out that chemotherapy would reduce my risk of recurrence by over enough. It got me well and truly under 10 percentage points of it coming back. So almost 20, it got me under 10. When I started thinking about numbers in the room, it's like, I like the under 10 bit. So I just looked at my husband. So we just had that conversation with the oncologist after all my tissue samples turned up because they got lost. And I looked at John and I said, well, then I guess I'm getting a puppy. So I decided that I knew that because at that stage I knew that chemo was going to be rough, and that we'd already there was once we got to the point of working out whether chemo was important, the decision had already been made, double amputation, and I was toing and froing about reconstruction, but I knew both of those things combined, I was going to need something in my world to make me feel good, to get me up, to get me outside of myself, to help me feel good about the world again. It was all well and good to have this 10-year plan, but I knew that wasn't going to be enough to get me through the processes every day. So that's how Smudge, my recovery puppy, came into the world. Fortunately, Smudge didn't arrive during chemo or when I first had my first really big surgery. So the second surgery, it was a 12-hour surgery. So there was just no way I was going to be able to care for him and my husband with a new puppy, like, no. So he came into our world when I was well enough, probably about 6 weeks after that surgery, when I was well enough to start looking after him and getting myself in and out of the shower chair on my own and things like that. So he's been in my world since then and likes to sit on me while I do my rehab and take me for walks and make sure that I'm, keeping up, or if he goes off too far ahead, because I taught him to walk off lead, because shoulders, arms, lead, small dog, not happening. So I taught him to walk off lead. So he'll come back if he loses sight of me and he's like, are you okay? He picks up on my energy if I'm not good, or if I've got a migraine brewing, or when pain was really bad, he would pick up on all of that. So he's been he's just been a wonderful addition to our life. He's been a sweetheart. That's how Smudge came into being. I prescribed myself a puppy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and that's what I love about your rehab, is you have guided your rehab all the way through, and you've made it happen for you without and not hurrying it either, like being really conscious of yourself.
Yeah, because everybody wishes recovery was a linear process, but it never is. And I get frustrated. I get really frustrated by it. I expect it to be better by now. But then, I've had 3 major surgeries here. Plus I've got a wound in my belly, which is bigger than a cesarean wound. When I stop and think about it, and I've had to learn so much about self-compassion. Which is really uncomfortable for me. I've had tremendous, like the physiotherapist I've been working with she's been the most amazing support. I met her last March. I got into her straight away. And even when she would be like, if all you can do today is walk around your lounge room, I want you to do that 3 times. And she was like, I actually need you to stop doing that now, Jo. I know, like, your sense of achievement has kicked in detrimental ways, but she's always done it in such a compassionate way, and she will always go, but look how far you've come. When I first met you, Jo, think about what we were dealing with. Can you remember? It was only October, Jo, when you couldn't actually get yourself in and out of bed. It's like, oh yeah, And now you tell me you want to do a 20-kilometer hike. No, we work up to that.
Yes.
To which my response was, but I don't walk on my hands.
I know.
And she may have rolled her eyes at me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You sound so much like me. I am not a good ill person at all. It's like, come on, get over this.
I think too, the understanding, like, I'm not failing. In the beginning of all of this, it just felt like every step backwards was a failure. And it's stopping is the failure.
Yeah.
And I still want to be able to do things, but like this weekend just passed, we've been doing some really vigorous hikes here in the Blue Mountains, my husband and I, and it stirred some stuff up in my hips and my back because I wasn't able to move as freely for about 6 months. And we chose not to do that on the weekend. Now I could have gone, but that's, you know, I'm used to doing that now and I should be able to do that now. So, well, no, my body's saying not to.
Yeah.
My body is a genuine, so what can I do? What can I do instead that's going to look after me and prepare me for summer? I want to be able to enjoy this summer. I want to be on the water. I want to learn how to stand up paddleboard. I want to go out and visit friends. Like last year, we didn't have one.
Yeah, that's right.
Summer was full of trauma. So this year, I really want to enjoy a summer. I'm taking most of January off and I really want to enjoy it. I'm old enough. It's like I don't have to eat Brussels sprouts if I don't want to. I want to take January off.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm hoping that it will be a wonderful summer for us this year.
Yeah. I'm hoping so too.
Yeah.
Hopefully out of this whole situation, like that people have learnt some kindness and compassion towards each other. That is my genuine hope. I'm treating people like that because to guard myself that everybody's mean and nasty just takes too much emotional load. It's too much effort.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And there's been so much kindness in the world recently that I've noticed that I've absolutely, you know, been a part of and been, you know, accepting of as well. So yeah, it's just lovely. Do you know what, Jo? Stand-up paddleboarding for you, like how long is that going to take to be able to do? With
exactly. So I have the actual paddle already. So we've already started some, and I've got a little wobble board already. This is hilarious. This story.
Those ball things.
It's a squishy ball thing that you stand on, right? So when that was brought into my world, these are the conversations my physio and I have. Thank you, Ruth. Love your work. She goes, I go, oh, that'll be so much fun. I'll be able to stand up at my stand-up desk on that ball all day. And she went,
no.
2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Oh,
do you want to know how long I've lasted?
How long?
10 seconds.
Fabulous.
So I look at that thing now and go, you evil thing. But, you know, it's going to be easier for me to get my balance and my hip and my core strength on that before I start trying to transfer it into water.
And that'll be a wonderful day for you when you actually stand up and paddle.
Yes. I'm looking forward to and I've really built it up. There's a few of us. I've got some other ladies in my world who are all breast cancer survivors, and we're going to get together, and this is something we're going to do together. And we have access to a wonderful sort of holiday place on the far south coast. So I was like, I'm going to do this. God, I better end up being able to do this because it's a big part of my future planning.
But it'll be okay if you don't get it done this year, right?
That is very true. Yes. If I can get up to sit on my stand-up paddleboard, I can be satisfied.
That's right. Yeah. So, Jo, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
What is the one thing that you want everyone to know about breast cancer?
That every woman or man who is diagnosed with this is going to be different. So please refrain from saying things like, my friend Joan had breast cancer and this is what she did.
Yeah.
Don't care, unhelpful. And never, ever, ever, ever say to a woman who is having reconstructive surgery, oh, you got a bonus boob job and tummy tuck.
Oh my God.
There's nothing
Oh,
bonus about this. People
no,
just do it flippantly,
I know.
and they're trying to be funny, and so it's not my job as a cancer patient to try and make you feel better about my diagnosis.
Yeah.
So there's some phraseology there, and I've chosen not to get angry and bitter about that, but it stings, it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just be curious. But and the other thing is, when you say to somebody, how can I help, we don't know. So you need to be a lot more prescriptive with that. So one of the best things that happened to us when I was going through my chemotherapy, a girlfriend of mine who lives 40 minutes drive away would drive here every Saturday, pick up our washing, take it back to her place, bring it back within the next 2 days, and she would have ironed if anything needed ironing.
Wow.
I didn't ask her she just said, can I do this for you? And I'm like, I don't really know if I want you to. She goes, too bad. This is what I can do. This is how I can help. This is what I wanted to do. And she did that for 4 or 5 months.
Wow. That's
and
awesome.
because the people drop off, the food thing becomes, oh, I haven't got time for that anymore, or people mow the lawn once, not realizing that it keeps growing.
Yes.
So it's about just being on top of that sort of stuff, and don't make it hard for the cancer patients to have to think about it all. That was some really good. Yeah, there you go. You asked for one thing. I think I gave you 7.
No, that's brilliant. I love that, because that's the thing with grief as well. It's the same sort of thing. Let me know if I can do anything for you. Like, it is grief that you're going through as well.
Yes, because and that doesn't stop when you are told you don't have any more evidence of disease. That, for me, when I got that diagnosis, is when I actually fell into a depression. I had all sorts of post-traumatic stress disorder types of symptoms turn up for me once I was told that. And I'm still working through all of that now. It was like my emotions finally went, okay, it's our turn. It's our turn.
That's right. So you've stopped getting things done to you, and then you have to be.
And you have to work out what that means now, and some of the really invasive stuff that you've had to go through to stay alive. And if you've ever had, as a woman or a young girl, if you've ever had any sort of inappropriate touching, well, you wait for all of that to turn up as well.
That's right.
So it's people just think so my husband has a very stoic, it's just like, I don't understand why this is still a problem on that, because it is.
That's right.
Yeah,
men are like that, aren't they?
It's like, okay. It's just like, I had nightmares about it again last night. And he's like, really? Yes.
Oh, wow.
And that's just going to be what it is until they stop. At least I'm not panicked by them anymore. They're still a thing, and they're still in my world, and I still need to be kind to myself.
Yes, that's right. And I think we'll end it there. Thanks, Jo. Thank you so much for your time.